Anin Buju, Makare Bini Say Nishnakas, Magazido Dem. Hi, it's Jamie here, and I was passed tobacco to speak about spirituality, connection, and the medicine wheel. And I thought it would be a good idea to actually show you where or how I use the medicine wheel as an Indigenous person, how I look at myself in relation to the world around me, and that's how I use that medicine wheel. So the great thing about this is that the medicine wheel for each person may look a little different. What sits where and why may differ from person to person. But as an Indigenous person, this is how I utilize that medicine wheel and how it looks for me. And it might be a great opportunity for you to look at what sits where for you. And no wrong answers, it's just what makes sense. So compared to other videos that I've done, this one will be a little bit longer, but I hope you enjoy and take a few minutes to listen and to really reflect on what you hear today. All right, so I am going to start with a smudge just to really help me organize my thoughts. And to just be present here in the moment. And I'll leave that smudge there a moment for you. All right. So while you're listening today, I'm just going to ask that you listen with a clear, open mind and to just be open to what I share. This won't be for everybody, but this is how I do it. So how I look at it. All right, so I already have the wheel and I've divided it into 4 sections, and then there's a center portion, which I'll get to. And so there's different things that I'll be adding in here. I'm going to be talking about traditional medicine. I'm going to talk about the seasons. I'm going to talk about life stages, different colors, the 4 intellects of the person, even the time of day, the element, which animals are in which direction for me, stages of learning, and the 7 sacred medicines. So bear with me. This is going to be, I hope, interesting for you to see how this works out or how this plays out. So for me, I start in the east and then go to the south, then the west, and the north. And I'm going to start with the medicine. So tobacco. Tobacco is first because that is the first medicine that we were given. I even mentioned that tobacco that I was passed to speak about this whole medicine wheel and our connection. And it's because it was the first medicine that we were given by Creator to show our intent, to ask for something, or to give somebody an appreciation for knowing that they'll share knowledge, or like that's kind of how I'm going to say that. And then in the south we have cedar. So that cedar is a protection medicine, and we use that a lot of times to really help clear the way for the things that are to come. And then the western direction, we have sage. So that sage is usually used to help clear everything, to clear, the air around us, to clear, to prepare for what's to come. And we use it a lot in all of our ceremonies. I just smudged with sage to start us off today. And then in the north, we have sweetgrass. And sweetgrass is a kindness medicine. It reminds us with its sweet smell. And if you've ever smelled sweetgrass when it's fresh, it's divine. It's a lovely scent, and really there's lots of teachings with each medicine just going around that circle. There's a lot that could be talked about just with those 4 medicines, but mainly that kindness, to really be kind to ourselves and to others. So now I'm going to talk about the season, and the reason why this is important is because we'll get to the end and you'll realize how each thing relates to each other and how it relates to the center, and I'll get to that part very shortly. So for this season, in the East, we start with spring. And for spring, it's that hope that everything's brand new. The plants are just emerging from the ground. Everything's so young, so fresh, so tender, and everything is just starting out. And then in the South, we have summer. So those summer days that seem to just last forever, and really that season of that growth, those storms and that nourishment of all those plants that are growing, and making sure that they're going to be preparing to seed for the next season. So all that growth happens during the summertime. And then in the western doorway, we have autumn. And so in autumn, all those plants that started growing in the spring, that grew all summer, they're ready for harvest, and they're ready to, we're collecting the fruits of those labors all summer long. And autumn also represents that season of everything getting ready to go to rest. And, the leaves are starting to fall, and we harvest all of those plants that have grown for those 3 seasons all the way into autumn. And then in the north direction, we have winter. So where we are in the north, all the plants go to sleep for the winter. And we have lots of snow, and that's a time of renewal and a time of rest. So that's all I'm going to say about that part. For the stages of life, so in the East, we have our babies, our children. So all our little babies, they start out in that eastern direction, and everything's new, and they're just born, and they're just experiencing everything. And it's a lot to learn, and we forget a lot of that stuff as we move through, and as we learn more things, and as we experience new things. But as little babies or children, that's where our hope is, in that eastern direction where the sun rises with the new day. And in the south, we reference our youth. So our youth are teenagers. Living in the summertime is to live that fast life, and making lots of decisions, and not knowing necessarily if that decision's going to be right or not, but you're making decisions super quick and experiencing even more than what you did when you were a child, when you were just a little baby. And in our youth time, that's when it feels pretty hard, because we feel like we're alone, that we're not understood necessarily, or that we're not seen just as we are. In the West, we have our adults. So after we're youth, we become adults, and our adults have lived through being a baby, lived through being a youth, and now we're getting to be responsible, because we're having our own babies. And in relation to, we're taking care of the youth. We got to take care of our own babies, our own children, and then we also take care of our elders a lot of the time. And so adults have a lot of responsibility. That's why they're carrying they're at the bottom of the circle. They have that responsibility for all of it. In the north direction, we have our elders. So our elders, not everybody makes it to this stage. So to be able to go through each stage and to finally make it to be an elder, it does say something about you being able to get to that point in life where people start to see you in a certain way because they know that you've lived through all of these things, that you've taken care of all the babies and all the children, that you've taken care of youth and even adults as each other, our aunties, our sisters, our uncles, our brothers, and our cousins. As an elder, now we mentor all of the other stages of life. We get to play with the little babies, and when they're too much, go back to your parents. We get to teach our youth, although sometimes because they're the opposite, sometimes our youth have a hard time listening to our elders. They have a hard time hearing what they're saying because they feel like they're so disconnected from what it was to be a youth, but they forget, or the youth don't know that elders have lived through all of these stages. And then, our elders are mentoring our adults how to take care of each of those other stages of life. And then we have our colors. So in the east, we have our yellow. So yellow, just as that sun crests over the peak of the horizon, the sky begins to turn yellow, just as that sun peeks over the edge, and the sky turns a nice bright yellow color. Really, and yellow is a hopeful color, and representing that new, that fresh. And in the south, we have red. Red because for our youth, when you're learning new things and you're going through everything, literally you see red. You're experiencing all of those things, all those emotions, and you have a hard time processing all that stuff. And so sometimes that's all you can see, and red's like the color of like fire and passion and just that first experience, and to really embrace things. So that's why red sits in the south. And in the west, there's black. So black isn't a bad color, but black in the west represents that western doorway, represents the darkness, the balance for that yellow, that if we have one thing on this side, the balance has got to be on the other side. Otherwise, it's not balanced. If black was in the south, it wouldn't be balanced from yellow to black. It's at the opposite portion of the color wheel. And in the north, we have white. So white we often associate with calm, fresh, and also for that winter, that white really instills that idea of tranquility. And if you've ever sat with our elders, they're very quiet sometimes, but if you get them talking about something they enjoy, they'll share in a way that demonstrates that they've experienced all of these phases of life in a way that hopefully will make sense for you so that you can learn. And really, if you think about, when we see the clouds in that sky, that really gentle fluffiness, again, we have that kindness to be able to share and to pass along everything that we've learned. So when I think about next, the four intellects. So in the East, this is the firsts. So experiencing everything for the very first time. And sometimes you experience something and you're like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. And you don't even look at it again. But everything, you're experiencing the entire world around you for the very first time. And you don't know what everything is yet. Your very first impressions, or your very first experiences help, but they help form your view of the world based on your very first experience. when we get to the south, this is when you make your mistakes. So you've experienced your firsts, and then as a youth, you start trying things out. You start making decisions based on what you think you know about life. And often you make a lot of mistakes, which is okay because you're learning and you have to go through that to be able to say, yeah, I lived through that and now I know better. And the reason why you make a lot of mistakes is because you're still coming off of your first bit of learning with the world and your first bit of experience. And how else to say that? You don't have experience to back up your decisions. So oftentimes you'll make what is considered mistakes. I'm sorry, that's the 4 stages of learning I'm talking about, not the 4 intellects. I'll get back to that. That'll be next. So as an adult, you start to become more experienced. So you've gone through all your firsts, you've made some crazy mistakes, and now you're getting to be able to make decisions based on experience because you lived through it. And hopefully you've made enough mistakes to know better, working smarter, not harder. And that is a reflection, being experienced in something, to be able to make a decision that you can tell that, they've actually done something that made them decide to do something in a specific manner or a specific way. And then, as you become an elder, you're able to demonstrate a mastery of those experiences. You're able to demonstrate that you've lived, you've gone through the firsts, you've made the mistakes, you've got some experience to back it up. And now it's not necessarily hindsight, but you're like, when you look at certain situations, a decision that's going to really help make sure that it's the best possible outcome based on all of that. And then the 4 intellects, I apologize, I had my stages of learning and my intellects mixed up. So the 4 intellects, as a baby or as a child, you're experiencing everything for the first time. Everything's very physical. So the first time you're taking that first breath of air, the first time you're feeling, the touch of kindness of your caregiver caring for you, the first time feeling the ground, first time for everything. And it's a very physical sense, and it's hard to move past that until you've gone through experiencing the firsts and to see everything with new, fresh eyes. As you come from that section, as you go through all those firsts, you experience all those physical things for the first time. In the South, as a youth, you really begin to experience the emotional portion of life. Struggling to be seen, struggling to feel heard, struggling to feel love. You start to really form as an infant or a child. You really start to you experience love in a different way. As a youth, you start to form your ideas about relationships, and you start to feel. But like I said, when you see red, you're feeling things very deeply because you're developing that emotional intelligence, and to really you're deciding on things now that are going to affect you for the rest of your life. So how you form your relationships, how you form your ideas are highly influenced by your emotions. And as we move into the Western doorway, as an adult, we start to really look at spirit. We look within as an adult, as we become responsible for the babies and the children and our youth, and we're taking care of our elders. We really start to develop our own spiritual aspect, and this is part of that spirituality piece. You have to have experienced all of that physical stuff first. You have to have experienced all that emotional stuff first, making all those mistakes, really seeing, or to really feel like what life felt like, to be slow and to be still, or to be fast as a youth. And then you start to really find your spiritualness, your meaning of life. That's when, as an adult, you really start to develop that. And then as an elder, you really can demonstrate your intellectual. So the intellectual portion of your being, you've experienced all the stages of life, and through the physical experiences, gone through, the mistakes, seeing red in your emotional, to ride that literally a roller coaster. And then you become more experienced, and you're starting to look at spirit, and then you're really focusing on that intellectual piece, that mental piece, where you're going to start mentoring and teaching all of those other stages of life around you. And I'm going to actually point out an animal, and our animals in Indigenous spirituality or Indigenous teachings carry certain teachings themselves. Each thing that I've talked about here, like I said, each medicine has its own specific teaching. Each season, everything has a very specific teaching associated with it. And so in the East, we start with the eagle. That eagle carries our messages, carries that message of love. And when we offer our tobacco and that eagle sees us, they fly so high that they can see Creator's world, and they can still see ours because their eyesight is so sharp. And so therefore that eagle comes for them eastern direction, and then carries messages to Creator for us about what they're seeing, the Anishinaabe and all those people, what they're doing. In the South, there's the wolf, and they teach humility. And oh my goodness, as you make mistakes, you get humbled so fast. You think, oh yeah, I totally got this. And you realize that you completely crashed and burned. What a great way to learn humility. But hopefully you're learning humility in a way that's kind, that allows you to make those mistakes, that will show you, how to be humble. It's okay to be proud that you've done something well, but if you're boasting about it, that wolf reminds us we can do things in a good, kind way, and we should carry ourselves in a good, kind way, because not everybody will be able to do what we do, but we have a chance to show others in a good way how it is to be humble. In the western direction, we have that buffalo. That buffalo teaches respect. Respect for yourself, respect for others, respect that everyone's on their own stage and learning, and that respect that we have for ourselves, for our responsibilities, our place in life, the things that we need to take care of, and respect for the fact that as a baby, we can't expect them to be a master at something. So we really want to show them that kindness. We really want to show them that love. We want to show them all the good things of the world, so that they will have that to carry them through as they go through their life. And as we become an elder, we really have the courage, we have the learning of going through all of these stages of life. And that bear reminds us of that courage to make sure that we're showing things in a good way, make sure that we're mentoring these different stages of life with kindness. We have the courage to stand up for what's right and to do it in a good, kind way. And then I wanted to talk about the center. This is us. So us in relation to everything around us. So we have to find our balance between each of these stages. And not each stage, like sometimes we're going to go back to our firsts as a youth. And sometimes we're going to, as an adult, we're still going to go back and experience those really high, big emotions and make mistakes. Not Progress is not always linear, and to be able to go back and to re-experience something, and to see the firsts again, to watch, a baby's first steps, or to just relive that moment of excitement, our relation to everything in the world around us. This is our spirituality, how we form our idea of self. So that's our spirituality. This is where we find our beliefs. This is where, because we're looking at ourselves, where we find meaning or happiness. We start to, look at, how should I live? How do I carry myself in a good, kind way? We start to really distance ourselves from negative thoughts and negative people, because who wants to feel bad? Honestly, we want to experience things with kindness, with love, with appreciation for life. That belief that life is sacred. And that life is meant to be experienced. And that you can't just jump from being one to the other. You got to go through it. There's that connection piece of how we experience everything for the first time, to start giving tobacco, or offering that tobacco for our appreciation of this whole experience that we call life, to find meaning as a youth, to find meaning as an adult, as an elder, finding meaning as a little baby. We're just experiencing everything for the first time. It's hard to do that sometimes. And so when I talk about the 7 sacred teachings, there's love. These are values that transcend culture, and I love being able to explain them in a way that it makes sense for you. So when I say I love you, a little child, the easiest way to explain it, when they love, they have nothing else to reference, so it's pure acceptance, just as you are. Not, it'd be so great if you did this, or it'd be so great if you changed this about yourself. Just as you are. There's that good, kind, and very pure love. And they're so truthful that they just blurt stuff out. They're like, wow, this is ugly. And they just say it. And they're just really, really honest. And as youth, we start to experience honesty. What does it mean to really tell the truth? Honesty, is what I'm saying helpful? Is what I'm saying kind? Is what I'm going to say going to help somebody? And we really learn that humility. There's that wolf with that humility. We learn how to carry ourselves in a good way, so that as we get to an adult, we really get to experience that respect in a good way. And we start to develop courage as an adult, and as we get to be an elder. And going through everything, this is where we really start to hit that wisdom. as we've gone through, we've experienced what it means to be loved unconditionally. We know as a little kid, did you break this? Yeah. We learn truth. As a youth, we start to experience that honesty, and that not everybody is always honest with us, and sometimes that influences how we see ourselves. We experience that humility, and we have to have that humility to really have that respect for everything around us, for ourselves, and us in relation to everything around us, that connection piece. As we experience things, we develop that courage, we develop that wisdom, and we really, all of this influences yourself, what you believe, what you find meaningful, what you find that brings you joy in life. And then that determines how you live. That's what spirituality means for me, is where do I find meaning? Where do I find happiness? How do I live my life? And that I want to appreciate those really amazing and great things in my life. So I know that was a lot. I wanted to also talk about TP teachings, but I think I'll leave that for another video. But so this is the medicine wheel for me as I see it, and I hope that kind of gave you an introduction to what the medicine wheel is. It's a way of organizing your thoughts and in relation to you, the world around you, and how you live your life. So that's all I'm going to share today. And if you have any questions or if you have any comments that you want to share, go ahead and add those to this video, or if you know how to get a hold of me and get in contact with me, go ahead and do so. And other than that, I hope you have a really great day today, and as you reflect on everything I've shared, I hope you do so with the idea of learning that this is how, as an Indigenous person using the medicine wheel, this is how I view myself and the world around me, and how I teach others to reflect on that as well. All right, have a great day. Hope to see you again.